Hello people YouTube, Yonin77 back with more Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. In this part we will actually be starting up Chapter 1, because the first part was technically the prologue, but this is the battle begins. So in this we are introduced to the, basic, we're going over the quick summary of this game. We need some way to start this game out without the epic plot, we need a much simpler plot. Luckily we get into the epic plot a lot sooner than you feel all the time. But anyways, here Ike's just talking about, man, I was up all night trying to think about how exciting this is going to be. So, yeah. Anyways, you're with Titania, Boyd, Oscar, and Ike for this chapter. And those are the 4 members you were given, compared to the whole team of 1 that you had last chapter. I don't know, that was a bit much to deal with, if you know what I mean. Anyways, so in this chapter you're introduced, controlling multiple teammates. Luckily, you aren't introduced to too many to deal with that it stresses you out, so I think the game does a pretty good job of fitting you into that. But right now it explains the mechanics behind the weapon triangle. So swords beat axes, axes beat lances, and lances beat swords, but the only difference is a 1 damage difference. Okay, so if I use Ike against Boyd, Ike, let's say the base damage is 2. Ike will do 3 damage, and Boyd will only do 2 damage. And that's the logic behind sort of how the weapon triangle works. Anyways, let's get into some character bios here. So first up on our list is going to be Titania. When you first get her, she can pretty much single-handedly take down any chapter she wants to by herself. You might be wondering, why is that? Well, if you look at her stats, she's a level 1 paladin. That's the key word there, paladin. It's when a character reaches level 21, they turn into a new class and they are stat boosted, or they might gain a lot more stats, be able to use another weapon, or stuff like that. It's some pretty fancy stuff that we'll get into more later. But anyways, so Titania is one of those people, which is the reason you will not see me using her very often. Because by using Titania, you make it so that your other characters aren't going to be gaining as much experience. And Titania comes at a... Let's say that she was probably upgraded around level 15, which means in total you're going to be missing out on 5 levels. Anyways, that's my spiel on pre-promoted units, which is Titania. Titania herself actually can turn into a pretty decent for a pre-promoted unit. She has high HP, medium strength, medium magic, above average skill, speed, and average luck, defense, and resistance. And also she can use lances and axes. She also comes with the skill counter, which makes it occasionally when she takes damage, she will return half of the damage taken to her. Next comes Oscar, who is a lance knight that you get, meaning he rides on a horse and he specializes in using axes. Once you turn a paladin, you can make it so he can use a second weapon. The recommended weapon is the bow and arrow, so that he can use a hidden move later in the game, if you choose to use Boyd and 1 other unit. Now, he has for his HP, it is a above average, average strength, low magic, doesn't really matter, and a above average skill, average speed, average luck, average defense, and average resistance. So overall very average, but with no serious drawbacks. Okay, and then finally comes Boyd, who is the one fighter that you will get in this game, and he specializes in using axes. He has a tremendous amount of HP, which is offset by his mediocre defense and mediocre speed, meaning he will not be dodging many attacks, but he necessarily will not die from 1 attack because of his massive amounts of HP. He does have a pretty high strength, magic, and skill, and then has average luck and resistance to go with that. And once again, he specializes in axes. He comes with the ability Tempest, which will sometimes double the Bereathem effect, which I will get into later, just thought I should let you know that he has that. Okay, so anyways, the main concept behind this chapter is that there are a bunch of thugs taking over this town, so you gotta go beat these thugs up. Earlier I had Titania grab a steel sword from that house, and what essentially weapons are stronger based on this system of iron being the weakest, steel comes second, silver comes third. And the higher the rank, the less chances you have of using 2 attacks, but the more damage it overall does. And later in the game, it won't matter what weapon you're using, so much as you're using so much as your character's speed itself. Something I also did not mention is that Ike, when you first get him, comes with 4 iron swords, which is actually a lot. So I actually recommend using Titania as a cargo, in the sense that you can give her a lot of items to just carry around, because you will not be introduced to your convoy system until Chapter 8, in which you can start storing up items. Now, in the top left corner, you see a bandit heading towards that orange house. Orange houses mean you can enter them, and they will give you an item. So if that bandit reaches in front of the house, then you can't get the item inside the house. So, obviously, I'm trying to get into that house before. Sometimes what I do is disequip Titania's weapon, so she won't attack anything, thus not stealing experience. But what I decided to try to do here is just send Oscar over to it, and luckily it worked out pretty well for this. I didn't realize how huge Ike's range or how small this map was, so that Ike could actually reach over to the house, though, which made it kind of convenient. But something you can't be too prepared about in Fire Emblem games is you can't be too safe. Well, I guess, yeah, theoretically you can be too safe, but something that makes Fire Emblem really good is that if a unit dies, they are gone forever. There is no restoring that unit back. There's no way of getting that unit back. They are gone forever. So if I ever lose a unit, what I do is I just click restart on the console in order to load my game back up, because I try to go throughout the game without losing any team members. Also, because it's a lot like, think of it's Pokemon, what's it called, when you go through the whole entire game and you, oh my gosh, I can't remember what it's called. There's a thing where if you lose a Pokemon, they're gone forever, and the rules are you can only catch the first Pokemon you catch on a route, even though it's nothing like that, catching the first Pokemon you get on a route sort of thing. Right there, the enemy did not attack me. It tends to be enemies will attack you no matter what, even if they are killing themselves. So I was really confused right there, but I just dealt with it. I said, okay, you can just walk, and it completely ignore me. So I let them do that. Okay. So right now my plan is I plan on using Ike, Oscar, and Boyd in my main run, because I find them all to be very reliable units. Well, as I said with Oscar can tend to take a beating pretty well. Despite what I said about his stats, I don't know why they say to be low, but it tends to be my Oscars tend to be good. And there's me gaining a whole 1 thing on a level up. That's what we call Fire Emblem sometimes likes to screw with you on its level ups and just give you horrible things. Like, it is possible that when you level up, you will not level up anything, which sucks. Anyways, what Titania got there from the house was a Seraph Robe, which will boost your HP by 7. And that might not sound a lot in RPG terms nowadays, but that is actually a lot. Seeing as, like, the big bad enemies, well, the final boss has, I think, 60 HP. So 7 HP is actually a ton of HP to be using. Now, something I don't do here that you can do is called boss abuse. That's when you when you constantly attack a boss just all the time, making it so that you can get a theoretically infinite experience. The one thing that sets you back is item durability. But luckily, Ike comes with freaking 4 iron swords, and then you get 2 more swords in this chapter from that Midoriyan that Boyd defeated, and the steel axe, the steel sword that Titania picked up earlier. So using that, you can go up to this guy, hit him 2 times, then waste a turn. He's gonna heal up a little bit of HP. And you can keep on healing. You can keep on letting him heal up, so So you can essentially just get Ike, or, well, most likely Ike, because he has so much durability, because he has so much weapon durability, but it's also limited to your vulnerabilities. How many vulneraries you have will determine it, because Ike can't get hit too many times. Luckily, as you can say, that Ike has a really high dodge stat, so enemies will miss a lot of the time, which is the most painful thing. When you miss, it's absolute pain. When enemies miss, you're really happy about it. Anyway, so we defeat the boss here, and the way that you clear most chapters where there's a boss standing on a point is that you have Ike just walk up to it. Right here, though, because I forgot to remove an item from Ike's inventory, I have to get rid of either the Iron Axe or an Iron Sword. So, unfortunately, Boyd isn't going to be allowed to keep that. So I seize and clear the map. Anyway, so that was the first real chapter of this game, and our first stats along Ike's epic journey to become a epic... I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, because, once again, this really isn't going to be a story-driven LP. I'll try to just glimpse over it, though. So this is Jonas, this is 7. If you like this, forget 2 thumbs up below with the big yellow or gray button. If you want to, the comment saying your character's on. Bye-bye.